Once, in a very old house, there was a very old library. The library was filled with tall, towering shelves that reached all the way up to the ceiling. These shelves were home to countless books, each one holding a different story or a secret from long ago. Sunlight streamed through a large, dusty window, making little dust motes dance in the air like tiny, sparkling fairies. It was a quiet place, a place where stories slept and waited to be read. The air smelled of old paper and leather, a comforting and ancient scent that filled every corner. It was a magical room, even before the real magic began. In this quiet, sleepy library lived a small orange kitten named Pip. Pip was no bigger than a teacup, with fur the colour of a warm sunset, and eyes as green as new spring leaves. He was a very curious kitten. He loved to explore every nook and cranny of the big house, but the library was his favourite room of all. He would chase the dancing dust motes and pounce on sunbeams that lay across the floor like golden carpets. He often curled up for a nap on a soft velvet chair, dreaming of grand adventures and exciting quests, unaware that a real one was waiting just for him. Today, Pip was feeling especially adventurous. He tiptoed silently across the polished wooden floor, his tiny paws making no sound at all. He looked up at the giant shelves, wondering about all the secrets hidden inside the books. What amazing tales did they hold? Were there stories about brave knights, or funny dragons, or maybe even other curious little kittens like him? He felt a little shiver of excitement run down his tiny spine. The library seemed to be whispering to him, calling him to discover something wonderful, something hidden just for a brave explorer. Pip's little nose twitched as he sniffed the air. He followed a new scent, one that was different from the usual smell of old books. It was a scent of dust and wood, but also something else, something that smelled like old magic and forgotten wishes. It led him toward the centre of the room, to a large, sturdy wooden table that stood like an island in a sea of books. Something on that table was calling to him. His heart began to beat a little faster with anticipation. He knew, with all the certainty a small kitten could have, that his adventure was about to begin. With a determined little leap, Pip jumped onto one of the chairs next to the big table. From there, it was just a small hop to get onto the tabletop itself. He landed softly, his green eyes wide as he looked around. The table was covered in a fine layer of dust, and his paws left tiny prints as he walked. In the very centre of the table, bathed in a single bright sunbeam, lay an object he had never seen before. It was not a book, but a roll of old yellowed paper, tied shut with a simple piece of faded red string. It looked very, very old. Pip crept closer, his curiosity getting the better of him. The rolled-up paper seemed to hum with a quiet energy, a feeling he could sense through his whiskers. It was almost as if it was sleeping, just waiting for someone to come and wake it up. He gently nudged it with his nose. It felt warm to the touch, which was strange because the rest of the room was cool. He batted at the red string with a soft paw, and with a gentle tug, the knot came undone. The old paper began to slowly unroll, as if it were taking a long, sleepy stretch after a very long rest. As the paper unrolled, a soft golden light began to shine from within it. The light grew brighter and brighter, pushing back the shadows in the room. Pip blinked, his eyes adjusting to the warm glow. It was not like the sunlight from the window. This light felt alive. It pulsed gently like a tiny, beating heart. The light illuminated the old paper, revealing that it was not just any paper. It was a map. Strange lines and curious symbols were drawn upon its surface, different from anything Pip had ever seen in the books on the shelves around him. He leaned over the map, his little head tilted in wonder. The golden glow made his orange fur shine, and it reflected in his wide green eyes. The map was beautiful. It showed winding rivers, tall mountains, and dark forests. But it was not a map of any place he knew. This was a map of a magical world, a world of fantasy and dreams. He felt a pull toward it, a sense of wonder that filled his entire tiny body. He had found something special, something secret. He had found a treasure, and the adventure had only just begun to unfold. Just as Pip thought things couldn't get any more magical, the golden light from the map suddenly changed. It shifted from a warm, sunny gold to a deep, mysterious blue. The blue light washed over everything in the library, making the room look like it was underwater. The tall bookshelves turned into deep blue cliffs, and the dust motes floating in the air now looked like tiny glowing blue stars. The entire room was transformed into a magical, secret grotto. Pip gasped, his little mouth forming a perfect O of surprise. He had never seen anything so enchanting in his whole life. The blue light pulsed softly, and as it did, something amazing began to happen on the map. The lines and symbols that were drawn on it started to move. Little glowing dots of light, like tiny fireflies, began to travel along the twisting paths and rivers. Then new symbols appeared, writing themselves onto the paper in shimmering blue ink. These were not letters that Pip knew. They were magical runes, ancient symbols that swirled and danced with a life of their own. They glowed with the same mysterious blue light that filled the room, casting tiny, moving shadows on Pip's face. Pip watched, completely mesmerized. One of the glowing runes lifted right off the page. It floated in the air for a moment, spinning like a tiny magical top, before gently drifting down and landing right on the tip of Pip's nose. It felt cool and tingled slightly, like a snowflake, before it dissolved into a puff of blue glitter. Pip sneezed a tiny, sparkling sneeze. He felt a strange and wonderful energy buzz through him. It was the magic of the map, and it felt warm and exciting, like the feeling you get just before you open a wonderful present. The runes continued to appear all over the map, forming patterns and shapes that seemed to tell a story. They pointed toward a large, sparkling star drawn in the corner of the map, a place marked with a symbol that looked like a crystal mountain. Pip could not read the words, but he could understand the feeling behind them. The runes were a call to adventure. They were an invitation. They were telling him that a great journey was waiting for him, a quest to a land of magic and wonders that he could only imagine in his wildest kitten dreams. Pip's heart was thumping with a mix of excitement and awe. He was no longer just a small kitten in a dusty library. He was an explorer, a hero at the very beginning of a grand tale. He looked from the glowing map to the blue-lit room and back again. The world he knew had completely changed, filled with magic he never knew existed. His curiosity, which had always been a big part of him, now felt like a roaring fire. He wanted to know everything. Where did the map lead? What secrets did the Crystal Mountain hold? What other wonders were waiting to be discovered? He placed a tiny paw gently onto the surface of the map. As his paw pad touched the glowing paper, the blue light swirled around it, and a bright, shimmering path lit up. leading from a symbol that looked like a little house all the way to the sparkling star. It was as if the map was showing him the way. It was a clear invitation, a "you are here" for a brave little adventurer. He felt a surge of courage. He wasn't scared at all. He felt ready. He felt like this was what he was meant to do all along, ever since he first chased a sunbeam in this very room. The magical blue light began to soften, and the runes stopped swirling so wildly. The room slowly returned to its normal colors, and the sunbeams shone golden on the floor once more. But the map on the table continued to glow with a soft, steady blue light, a quiet promise of the magic it held. The shimmering path stayed lit, a constant reminder of the journey that awaited. The library was no longer just a quiet place for naps. It was now the starting point of the greatest adventure a kitten could ever have. The air still hummed with leftover magic. Pip looked at the open door of the library, then back at the glowing path on the map. He knew his life would never be the same. The quiet days of chasing dust motes were over. Now, a world of magic, mystery, and excitement lay before him, all laid out on an ancient, glowing map. With a final look at his cozy home, he took a deep breath, puffed out his chest, and faced the future. The kitten's magical map adventure was about to truly begin, and he couldn't wait to see where it would take him next.